60 million years ago, this predator ruled the ocean. It's bigger than a T-Rex, faster than a shark. The Mosasaurus was nature's ultimate sea monster. Mosasaurus, the name alone sounds terrifying. And if you were swimming in the shallow seas of North America, Europe, or Africa 60 million years ago, you certainly would have had good reason to fear it. This gigantic whale monster could grow up to 18 meters long and weigh as much as 40 tons. It had the bulk to rival a Tyrannosaurus rex, and it was also built for speed, capable of chasing down prey with the power and agility of a great white shark. In fact, the Mosasaurus was so fierce that when paleontologists found its fossils, they named it in honor of the monster from Greek mythology whose breath could paralyze and kill. Truly, this was the stuff of nightmares. So how did such an awesome creature come to be? What was life like back when the Mosasaurus was alive? And most importantly, how did it die out? Welcome to Paleologic. Today we are going 60 million years back in time to learn about one of the most ferocious predators that ever lived, the Mosasaurus. As we just mentioned, the Mosasaurus is a relatively recent addition to the fossil record. Its fossils have been discovered in Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, and many other states across North America. They've also been found in Western Europe and Northwestern Africa. But while these sites may seem pretty far apart, all of the fossils come from the same formation of rock called the Chassian, which tells us that the Mosasaurus lived during the very last stage of the Cretaceous period, only 10 million years before the asteroid impact that killed off the dinosaurs. The first Mosasaurus fossils were actually discovered in 1866 by the English geologist and paleontologist John Phillips. He found them, along with those of many other prehistoric creatures, in the chalk cliffs of Sussex, England. At the time, there were still so many gaps in the fossil record that we didn't even know what kind of animal the Mosasaurus was. Some thought it might be a type of whale, while others thought it might be a giant lizard. Ultimately, it was determined to be neither. The Mosasaurus was a type of marine reptile known as an archosaur, and it turns out that it was more closely related to dinosaurs than to whales or lizards. In fact, it was part of the group of reptiles that led to both dinosaurs and crocodiles. So while it wasn't technically a dinosaur, it was close enough that it lived during the same time period and filled a similar role in the ecosystem as a large carnivore. In terms of size, the Mosasaurus was the apex predator in the world's oceans. Bigger than anything else in the water, except for maybe some really big whales. But compared to whales today, the Mosasaurus was much more active and aggressive. Unlike whales, which are fully adapted for life in the water and are basically just oversized fish, the Mosasaurus was a true monster of the seas. It had huge paddle-shaped limbs and a long, powerful tail that propelled it through the water at speeds that would make any shark blush. It also had a massive head with sharp teeth and a gigantic bite force, around 9,000 pounds per square inch. That's even bigger than the T-Rexes. So the Mosasaurus could easily tear through flesh and bone, crushing its prey into small pieces before swallowing it whole. Okay, now that we've established that the Mosasaurus was big, mean and scary, let's talk a little bit about how it evolved into being. As we said before, it was an archosaur, specifically a member of a group called the Ichthyophthirigians. These were mostly medium-sized marine reptiles that were perfectly adapted for life in the water. Some of them looked like giant salmon with fins and tails. Others were more like dolphins. Still others were huge like today's whales, but had bodies like swordfish. The ancestors of the ichthyosaurs were terrestrial reptiles that returned to the sea to exploit the abundant food supply. It was a move that ultimately led to the evolution of some truly remarkable creatures. The earliest ichthyosaurs appeared in the fossil record during the Triassic period around 230 million years ago. They quickly became one of the dominant groups of marine reptiles and continued to thrive throughout the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. But then around 60 million years ago, they suddenly disappeared, leaving behind only a few fossils that preserve in the rocks of western North America. What happened to them remains a mystery, but it may have something to do with the Mosasaurus. Okay, so the Mosasaurus was a big deal, but why exactly did it go extinct? Well, as with many other prehistoric creatures, it probably had something to do with the asteroid impact that killed off the dinosaurs. But the story doesn't end there. See, the impact didn't instantly wipe out all life on Earth. Instead, it triggered a chain reaction of ecological disaster that played out over millions of years. The impact winter that followed the collision plunged the world into darkness. Plants died, the ocean's phytoplankton died, and with them, the whales and other large marine animals starved. But within a few 100,000 years, things began to return to normal. Life slowly began to creep back into the oceans, and eventually the waters teemed with new creatures, including the Mosasaurus. And that brings us to the present day. Fossils of the Mosasaurus have been found in many places around the world, suggesting that it was a truly global phenomenon. But it's also possible that it migrated long distances, traveling between different oceans to hunt for food or to find mates. We don't know for sure because no one has ever found a mosasaur fossil with injuries that would have been fatal. And that's lucky because we hate for someone to get hurt trying to learn about our natural world. Although the Mosasaurus was a fearsome predator, it was also an important part of the marine ecosystem. It kept the populations of smaller creatures in check and helped to maintain the balance of nature. But like all living things, the Mosasaurus eventually died out. There are several theories as to why this might have happened. One is that it simply couldn't compete with the newly evolving whales, which were growing larger and more intelligent. Another theory is that it was wiped out by another mass extinction event that occurred about 36 million years ago. Whatever the cause, the Mosasaurus disappeared from the fossil record around 30 million years ago, leaving behind a legacy of terror and wonder that has lasted to this day. Hey there, thanks for coming along on this journey through time. If you enjoyed learning about the Mosasaurus, be sure to stay tuned for more exciting episodes. And while you're at it, be sure to leave us a like and subscribe. With your support, we can keep bringing these videos to life and sharing our passion for science with the world. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time for more Paleologic.